Hi, everybody. I am Josh Lapp with Designing Local,
And I'm Amanda Golden with Designing Local.
and we are here today to talk to you a little bit about public art in Port St. Lucie. We are going to talk a little bit about who we are, about the type of work that we do, and about public art generally, and then really get into some specifics about Port St. Lucie, all very quickly. So we are here working on the Port St. Lucie Public Art Master Plan. And Amanda will tell you a little bit about our firm.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. Yeah, so at Designing Local, we focus on arts and culture all over the country. So we have a really fantastic, fun job, and we get to travel around and learn all about different communities and how they want to express themselves through public art, placemaking, and as well as urban design.
And we work all over the country. So this is our first time working in Florida specifically, but we do projects all over the country. We are actually based in Columbus, Ohio. And we both started the firm together in 2014, really with an emphasis on being able to help make communities more interesting, more fun, more lively, and more vibrant. So what is the public art program in Port St. Lucie? So it's actually funded by a mechanism called a percent for art in private development. So any new development that's being constructed, 1% of the cost of that development has to go towards public art up to $100,000. That public art would need to be installed on the in the building or on the outside of the building in Port St. Lucie, wherever they're building, or that developer can give 80% of the money that they would have spent on public art directly to the city, and then the city spends that on putting out public art.
So Josh, is there any public dollars going toward public art in Port St. Lucie at all?
There are not actually. The public art program is entirely funded by private development. So any new building that's constructed, except for single family homes, has to pay this fee. And again, that's 1% of the cost of the development up to $100,000. So if it's a development that's more than $5 million, they still only pay $100,000.
Wow, that's great.
So here's a few examples of public art that exists in Port St. Lucie. This is at the Springs at Tradition, in the front part of that development. Here we've got another one. This is at a new hotel, also in Tradition. And in fact, I actually stayed at this hotel the last time I was in Port St. Lucie. So a really cool piece just sitting outside of the building. All of these, of course, are publicly accessible, so you can go and check them out at any time. We have another piece. This one was installed recently by a credit union that was doing a development in Port St. Lucie. This one is probably pretty recognizable for most people. This is a new piece of public art that went up on the Mets Stadium, and this was very recently installed and as part of the renovation to the stadium. That's inspired by some artwork that's actually at the Mets Stadium in New York. And this is another piece of public art, and this is actually at a roundabout, so that's really cool, in an apartment complex. So we have all kinds of diverse public art. There aren't that many pieces thus far in Port St. Lucie, which is exactly what we're doing as part of the Public Art Master Plan. So as part of the Public Art Master Plan, we're really looking for what types of locations we'd like to see public art, what types of public art we'd like to see, and all kinds of other processes and policies. But really what we want to hear from folks in the community is what they would like to see and where they would like to see it. But to inspire everyone, I want to talk a little bit about what public art could be in Port St. Lucie. So I want to use some examples from around the country, around the world, really, to just give some inspiration for what public art could look like. So public art can be very traditional. You have that idea of kind of a guy on a horse, a bronze sculpture that you'll see around the country, around the world even. But public art is more than that. So it can be traditional, and we like that type of art. But there's also room for lots of other type of art. So here we have a new piece that was installed celebrating the accomplishments of women in Richmond, Virginia. There are other pieces like this going up around the country as well. So they still have that monumental quality of the traditional art, but it's definitely a modern context. So quite different than some of these other things that we might
Mm-hmm.
see. We also really think public art can transform a space from mundane to interesting. So you might have a parking garage that's fairly ugly, not a place that you or I, Amanda, would want to spend time. But when you add public art, it makes it much more interesting and draws people out to places that they wouldn't otherwise go. It can also just transform the everyday spaces as we experience them. So this is at a transit stop. A really interesting piece, weaved into the chain link fence there. So really, again, taking this everyday, rather mundane, boring space and transforming it into something much more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They also, there are lots of temporary public art projects around the country that happen. This is a really interesting one with these giant rabbits. And I know, Amanda, when we've talked about this before, you said like, that looks like somewhere where I would probably go take a selfie.
Right.
So it's that kind of fun experience and transforming these spaces again, but in a temporary way. But we really care, and we're really excited, and you'll see this in my background up here, about bringing permanent fun to communities. So this is a deer, a sculpture by an artist named Terry Allen, and this is in our home community here in Columbus, where we live. And it's something that you see people just go out and experience at Christmas time, maybe not for you all in Florida, but at Christmas time for us, people go out and put scarves around the deer and put a little Rudolph nose on it. So people interact with things, just bringing a sense of fun, and especially in the time that we're at right now, where we aren't as connected physically as we would like to. Public art is still out there and is still inspiring people and encouraging people to engage with it. It also really can be functional. So this is a screen on a parking garage. We see functional public art all over the place. It might be a bike rack, it might be a bench, might be something else like that. But public art can bring interest again to those spaces. And just another, there are many benefits of public art, but one of them that I think is particularly important is that it can increase safety in areas just because it's drawing more attention, more people, and really enhancing the aesthetic of places. So we see in places that have issues with graffiti, a lot of times murals are put up because people don't like to damage pieces of public art that are really interesting and exciting. So that's really important. But why does it matter for Port St. Lucie? Well, one of the things that I have heard already in our survey responses, we've had, I think, over 350 survey responses as of today. And when I'm reading through them, what I see a lot of is we want to live in a vibrant community. We want our community to be more walkable. We want our community to have a sense of place. And while Port St. Lucie might not have a downtown in their traditional sense, it does have the ability to create those interesting spaces. Absolutely. And we can use public art as a tool to do that. So here's just some examples, again, for inspiration of different types of public art and how they can impact a space. This is a really cool one in Nashville in a roundabout. So these are like giant 40-foot sticks, appropriately titled sticks. And so that's a really fun one. Amanda and I personally have gone here and interacted with this piece. It's really fun. You can add interest and whimsy to any spaces, and this is exactly the type of thing we're looking to do in Port St. Lucie. Here's a very celebrated piece in Denver. Again, fun, whimsical, drawing people out, encouraging people to interact with their environment. And even this is not a location that I think people are physically present at. This is off of a highway, but still a very interesting thing that this is in Louisville, and this is the city's way of saying, let's make this an interesting space, even if people are just interacting with it from the street, from the highway. And then we can turn these mundane spaces. This is out of a project that we actually worked on in Columbus. Again, this is in the University District, transforming a dumpster, in fact, a whole series of dumpsters into art pieces. So really fun, cool things that we can do to celebrate public art. And lastly, they can really create this opportunity for gathering spaces. So right now is not a time where we're gathering in large groups, but even just going out and experiencing this piece of public art, which again is another one that Amanda and I were physically present at, just the energy and the enthusiasm and the connection and the pleasure that people get from experiencing public art makes it worth it to do it in our communities. So what do I need from you guys that are watching this video and hopefully going to give us some feedback about public art in Port St. Lucie? Well, one of the things we really care about is what types of locations would you like to see public art in? And so I know everyone watching the video might not live in Port St. Lucie, so this is only applicable to those of you who do, but you can go to cityofpsl.com/neighborhoods, and that will open up the search tool. You can put in your address and it will tell you the neighborhood that you live in. And this is a thing that the city has done recently where local residents got to vote on neighborhood names and really creating, again, a sense of place, something we also want to do with the public art. So we want to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts. It's really important, particularly as young people that are going, we're looking to shape public art in Port St. Lucie for the next, 10, 20, 30 years. And so we want to make a community that young people today want to live in well into the future. So we need your input and we need to hear your thoughts. So please fill out our survey and feel free to reach out to us, to our team. My email is josh@designinglocal.com. And you can feel free to reach out and send us your thoughts or send us your questions. And thank you guys so much for participating. And we hope to see you all physically present soon and when we can come back and visit Port St. Lucie. Thanks so much.
Thanks.